Hi everybody, welcome back to the music room for another week. This week I've been practicing a good bit on my Baroque violin, and so I wanted to show you a little bit about the Baroque violin. I was meant to be teaching a course at the School of Music in Cork, which I do every year with the ETB for Baroque violin, and of course because of the COVID lockdown we couldn't do the course. So I thought I'd just make this little video to show you guys a bit about the Baroque violin. This is something that I studied since I was younger, and not many violin players play the violin as it was in the Baroque times. That was like the 1700s. But a few of us still do, and we're an odd bunch. There's a lot of experimentation happened in the 1700s. It was a bit like now, I think. They'd just come out of a 30 years war in Germany, and there was a lot of poverty, there's a lot of sickness, and they were finding ways to rebuild their cultural life and their social life. And the violin was being made, really the best was made in Italy by Stradivarius, as we've all heard of, in the city of Cremona. And I think the Baroque violin was like the apex of this technology of making sound with strings and a box and a bow. I think after that we lost something by putting something else on, like by gaining things we lost something. That's why I like to play Baroque violin. I'm not so much bothered about historical accuracy or stuff like that, because we can't really know what it sounded like because we don't have recordings from then. We only have the manuscript. There's a lot of people in the early music world are really bothered by that, but it doesn't bother me that much because I like to take music and bring and go forward. I think going forward is really important. But the reason I like playing it is because there's a certain amount of limitation to it which helps me to think about the violin differently. And secondly, it has these beautiful gut strings, so there's nothing metal about this instrument. The strings are actually made of, you can see they're sort of yellowy in colour, tanny sort of colour. They're made of gut. In fact, the only metal is the winding, the silver winding on the G. The rest of it is gut string, so there's animal guts. So they have a really natural sound, much more overtones, much more interesting sort of texture to the sound compared to just the metal strings that modern violins use. The other thing about it is it has a very flat neck. The whole thing is very flat. Slightly different design of bridge. And so there has to be a wedge here in the fingerboard to lift up the neck to give the angle. And so you don't quite get as much volume. The reason they started to pull the neck down more like this was to create more tension on the bridge, to get more volume, because orchestras and violinists wanted to sound louder and louder. It's a bit like the electric guitar world. We wanted to sound louder and louder and turn things up even more and more. So you get a much more subtle sound. It's a bit harder to play on the gut strings. You have to be very, very particular with them. I remember hearing said, guts are very temperamental. I remember hearing said, you know the feeling in your guts and your stomach when you're about to perform. Well, that's how your strings are feeling as well. So you have to be kind of careful with them. There's no shoulder rest. Modern violins have a big clamped on thing here, and lots of other people clamp on another thing underneath so that they can clamp it onto their chin like that. And unfortunately, it means, you're clamping metal things around a box that's vibrating, so you're losing some of the lovely vibrations and resonances. And also, B, you can get a really stiff neck when you clamp down like that. You see violinists, they have these very red necks. Mine's all just unshaven. I think it's really important to be able to move and to be free and to hold the fiddle with this hand and be able to move and have a good loose shoulder. So what I do is I just have a little bit of this non-slippy stuff which I put under an elastic band, and that just means it's not going to slide out of the way. The other thing about this is the bow is really different, the Baroque bow. This is maybe even more important than the fiddle. I'll just show you these and then play you something. But Baroque bows curve this way rather than that way. Modern bows go like that in the middle. So the modern bow means you can just do pure sustain like Jimi Hendrix and keep going as long as you want. Baroque bow means you get like a note that goes wah, and then it tails off. It actually kind of follows the shape of the bow. So you get a much more lyrical sound. They're much lighter, they're not as long, they have a much lighter tip. And I just think it's such a nicer way of playing to have a light bow in your hand. You can control it much more like a paintbrush. This is one of my favourite Baroque bows, made by Mick de Hoog in Dublin. And this one has black horsehair. It's all just, there's no screw, you can't tighten or loosen it. It has a really good point for making a point. And yeah, again, it bends the other way. It's really, really light too. It's made of larch wood, so it's really half the weight of my other bow. So that's a little bit about the Baroque violin. I just find using technology really interesting from all different eras. I'm not stuck in one era. So I like this instrument. I just like playing it, really, and I like the sound it makes, and I like the challenge that it gives us. I love the music from that era, but I also like... that wasn't good. I also like, you know, these sort of instruments, technologies, and you know, this sort of stuff, synthesizers and things, tape machines and stuff like that. So I'm going to play you a little bit of Baroque violin with my twin brother. We're going to play the piece I was going to be teaching all you guys in the Cork School of Music. One of the pieces was the Bach double violin concerto, so I'm going to play that for you now. And if you want, I've actually made this recording with the bass is sample bass with the MIDI, because I can't play the cello. I played both the violin parts, and if you want, you can email me. I'll put my email at the bottom. I'll make available to you the violin 1 or violin 2 part separate, and then you can put it in your headphones and practice along. And it's really good fun, because you've got to hear both. This is a piece by the great J.S. Bach. It's the first movement of his famous double violin concerto, which I've been playing since I was a kid. And it's so amazing, it's so incredible the way he weaves all the different voices into this incredible fugal tapestry, coming in at different points, weaving around each other. It's phenomenal. Here's how Baroque violins can sound when they're composed properly. Enjoy. I'll see you tomorrow.